Today, I'm going to share with you the simple things that you can do as a real estate agent to win every single listing. Hi, my name is Mruwat. I'm with eXp Realty, where I've coached and trained thousands of real estate agents all over the world. And I'm going to share with you the simple things that you can do to make sure you win a listing every single time. So first off, it starts with defining your own goals. And it sounds a little bit cliche, but you always have to start with your why, because ultimately on the days where you don't feel like going on listing appointments or you don't feel like making your prospecting calls, your why is going to drive you every single day. And as Tony Robbins would say, your why has to make you cry. You've got to attach some kind of emotion behind it in order to make it powerful enough to really drive you every single day. So once you've defined your why, we've really got to define your goals and looking at how many transactions do you want or need to make per year. Once you've defined that, you determine what's your hourly worth, and then we start talking about leveraging, whether it's hiring an admin, whether it's hiring a TC. We have another video definitely on how to make your first hire. And so if you want that video, go ahead and comment below. So the second part of defining your goals is how many listings can you handle personally? Of course, there is a threshold. At some point, you're going to have to start hiring on some help. So whether that's going to be a transaction coordinator, whether that's going to be admin and marketing, or just an assistant, you're going to have to hire on some help. So once you've defined your personal goals and defined your why, you're going to create your own personal branding. And of course, a personal branding that's in alignment with the brokerage that you're with. Now, if you think about Nike, for example, and you see the little swoosh, you don't even have to see the name Nike without knowing that this is a shoe brand, right? And so ultimately think about your real estate business as your personal brand. How can you create a brand where when people see that brand, they ultimately think of you as the top real estate agent in your market? And you, of course, want to maintain top of mind awareness. There's a good phrase out there that if you own the mind share, then you own the market share. So once you've created your personal brand, how can you continue staying top of mind and continue getting more and more market share, which is going to show that you're going to be the customer's realtor for life. So once you've done that, we've got to start setting the expectations with our sellers. How can you win every single listing that you go on? And the first step is going to be setting expectations. And the reason why I say this is I have shadowed many real estate agents over the years and watching them go on their listing presentations, and ultimately they're begging for the business, right? Whether they're reducing their commissions if they want to, which is fine if that's part of your business plan, but then they're also trying to compare themselves to maybe other real estate agents that the seller may be interviewing. Ultimately, you want to just show your confidence, your expertise, and you don't want to buy your listing. So what do I mean by that? If you choose to reduce your commission just to be competitive in the market, yes, that's fine. But if you think about your business plan and ultimately how many transactions that you're going to do per year and how much money you need to make, at some point, sometimes reducing your commission doesn't make sense. I've seen agents reduce their commission so low that ultimately they're buying their listing. So think about a listing as an investment, because it essentially is. When you take on a listing, don't take on a listing just to take on a listing. Make sure that you're taking something that you can properly market, that you're going to be able to sell, hence you're going to get results and you're going to get commission. Now, it's important to something that's going to get results, because ultimately that's when people are going to refer you. That's when the neighbors are all watching and they're going to hire you to sell their homes as well. If you've got a sign in the yard for a long period of time, it's just going to be common knowledge or common assumption that you might not be the best real estate agent. So the better results that you have and that you market it properly and you price it properly up front and you set those expectations, over the long run, the better expectations and the better results you're going to have. So are you listing to sell, or are you just setting it up for another real estate agent? Again, when you go into, I've been into several listing appointments where I hear the real estate agent say, well, what do you want to list the house at? Well, no, that's one of the worst things you can do. They're hiring you as the real estate professional. Of course, they may have a number in their mind, or they may have a certain number that they need out of the home, and that's okay. But ultimately, your job is to guide them through the process, show them the comparables, show them what's sold, show them what's active on the market right now, and more importantly, what's going to be their competition. Because ultimately, if you don't and you list it too high, you're going to keep doing price reductions. It's going to sit on the market. Your contract's going to expire. They're going to end up just hiring another agent that's probably going to price it where it should have been priced with to begin with. So you have to ask yourself, when you walk away from a listing appointment, are you listing to sell, or are you just setting it up for another real estate agent? Consider that listing as an investment before you even put your sign in the yard. Think about your sign as your signature, because essentially it is. It has your name on it. So make sure you're putting your best foot forward every single time. And you also, when you're talking to sellers, you want to control the conversation and the outcome. And it's in no way to be deceptive, but again, they're hiring you as a professional. I'm not going to go to my attorney for advice, and in turn, they're going to ask me, what do I think? They're going to give me their advice because they have the knowledge, because they have the background, and that's essentially what I've hired them to do. So you have to ask yourself, is the seller pricing within a ballpark? You know, if they're a little bit on the higher end, maybe it's at the expectation that, hey, if we don't get X amount of showings within 2 weeks, we all agree that we're going to reduce it to X amount. And the reason why I bring this up is because, you know, if you're a real estate agent and you're watching this and you got licensed after 2020 and you've been at this all-time high crazy market, we haven't really experienced a lot of negotiations and price reductions and things of that nature. So now in this market, in the upcoming market that we may see, we're going to have to go back to the basics and be a little bit more creative. So I'm not saying that if you're a newer agent, you can't do it. It's just going to be a skill set that you're going to have to learn. So are you being competitive with your active pendings and sold listings? Like I said, you don't want to just look at the comparables of what's sold in the neighborhood, but also look at the market of what's going to be the competition right now. And is your seller willing to participate in a staging consult, right? It's always difficult for us to start getting rid of our personal belongings, the home the way that we know that it as it stands, but it's important as the real estate agent, as the professional, to let the seller understand that we have to depersonalize the home and we have to welcome it really to the open buyer, right? The buyer has to walk in and be able to imagine themselves in the home and not see all these personal pictures. So we definitely want to make sure that the seller is open to having that staging consult. And of course, how flexible is your seller with showings? That's going to be a big one. You can have the most marketable home, it could be priced right, but if the seller is difficult to schedule showings, then that can always stand in the way for buyers looking at it. Now, when you go into the listing appointment, of course, it's always important to walk in with confidence as if the listing is already yours. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, Tony Robbins always talks about that we always focus on the strategy and the how-to, but that's ultimately only 20% of it. 80% is going to be your own psychology, your own mindset, and the energy. So don't walk in with the fear that maybe they've interviewed 8 other real estate agents and you're the last one and you may or may not get the listing. Anytime I went on a listing appointment, I always walked in with the assumption that the listing, if I wanted it, right, that's the key, was already mine. And I, at that point, got to decide if I wanted to work with that seller or not. So don't ask questions as an interview to show uncertainty. What do I mean by that? Again, I've seen real estate agents walk in and say, what do you think about this? Where do you think about this? What do you think? How much do you think the home should be priced at? Because that's when they're going to start questioning you, because you're showing the consumer that you're uncertain. On the flip side, if you walk into a listing and you say, I've already done my research, given the condition of your home, given the location, given the comparables, this, and this is where we need to be priced at. Now, I've done a full tour of the home. These are the things that we need to change. And sometimes it's as simple as, you know, painting the kitchen white, the kitchen cabinets. I had a listing that sat on the market for 6 months with another real estate agent. We came in, lightened it up, did some minor changes, took it off the market for 30 days, put it back in, sold it over listing 6 days later. And so that's one of the things, if you just take a step back instead of rushing to throw it on the market, sometimes you're really setting yourself up for success. So come to the meeting ready with your listing agreement and your marketing plan in place. Most of the time, real estate agents will walk into a listing and they just got this full-blown listing presentation of how great they are, how great their company and their brokerage is, which is all amazing, but ultimately what matters are the results. That's what the consumer cares about. So although you might have a packet that you leave with them if they want further information about you and your company, but I would walk into the listing presentation the listing appointment rather, not with a presentation, but with a marketing plan. And I always had a 52-point marketing plan. If you want one, go ahead and comment below. I'll share mine with you. And so my 52-point marketing plan was very specific on the steps that we were going to take in order to get the seller's home sold, in order to get them the results that they wanted, and in turn, that's ultimately what they cared about. So provide a specialized marketing plan for this seller, not just a standard listing presentation. Be ready to get your sellers to commit and schedule the stager and photographer on site. So as I mentioned, a lot of times sellers are interviewing multiple real estate agents, which is great, but I always walked in with the listing agreement in hand with the assumption that if I wanted the listing, I was going to get the listing, and if they committed, I was going to go ahead and schedule the photographer, schedule the staging consult while I was there before I left. So if you show doubt, if you show uncertainty, if you feel doubt, the sellers are going to sense it. And that's whether you're a new real estate agent or a seller. I've seen it in the alike. So the mindset, your own mindset, is the number one reason for failure, and that's what's going to set you apart from the rest. Is if you believe that you're the best choice, if you believe that you're the best real estate agent and you can get the job done. So creating your marketing plan, how are you going to market the property outside of just sticking it into the MLS, the multiple listing service? As I mentioned, I have a 52-point marketing plan, and make sure if you have a marketing plan that once you get the listing that you perform your marketing plan, right? Don't fall victim to the market. Shift and adjust appropriately. This is incredibly important and could not be more true than today. Do you need to schedule price adjustments? As I mentioned, setting those expectations up front instead of just reaching out to them 2 weeks later and saying we need to reduce the price. Have those conversations up front, have a schedule so that way they know what to expect going in. Who's going to pay for staging and photography? Is that going to come from the seller, or is that going to be part of an expense from you as the real estate agent? Is that going to be part of your marketing plan? And then one of the best things that I did was I always held a broker's open, but not just a regular broker's open with a $100 gift card. We did this huge broker's open extravaganza. I mean, I think at one point we were giving away $15,000 in giveaways at a broker's open that we sold about 6 homes on. And so, and of course, all that was done through sponsors, etc. But that's some of the things that you can do to set yourself out of the box. So ask yourself, what's going to make you different? What's going to set you aside from every other real estate agent? So prepare to list, because your listing is your signature. And the top 5 things, when talking to real estate agents, top real estate agents all over the country, here are the top 5 things that successful listing agents said that they do. Number 1 is they always do professional photos. Number 2, communication is key. They're always sharpening their communication skills. Number 3, pricing strategy. As I mentioned, making sure that they're pricing it within the ballpark before they even take the listing. Number 4, prepping the home before they list the home. And last but not least, number 5 is the tool belt of vendors. So professional staging, why is that so important? Let them be the bad guy, right? They are the professional. Your stager is going to come in and they're going to let them know that they need to depersonalize, they need to declutter, they might need to even deodorize, right? But more importantly, they're also going to explain. If you have a good stager, they should be explaining to the seller that they need to protect their valuables, and that also includes medicine and firearms. So again, if you have that conversation up front, those are some of the things that you can do. Now, it's also important, I always like to have a stager who is familiar with my photographer as well. They knew what angles my photographer would use, and so that way they staged accordingly. And a lot of times staging consults don't mean that you're bringing in a bunch of furniture. It's really ultimately using what they already have and then taking away some different things. Your listing needs to be eye candy. What do I mean by that? The first picture that you put out there to the public, that's where consumers and potential buyers are going to decide if they want to look at the home or not. Is it feel warm and inviting, or is it just kind of a standard picture that they're scrolling through? Because you have to remember, as a buyer, put yourself in the mindset of a buyer. They might be looking through hundreds of homes. So how is yours going to stand out to make them favorite it and let their agent know that they want to look at that real estate agent or look at that home? So market analysis, give your sellers a ballpark price range, then schedule price improvements, as we mentioned before. What's the average days on market in that given neighborhood? The market should not dictate your success. As I mentioned, that's incredibly important, especially right now as we're seeing that market shift. Know how long it should take to sell the home and set the right expectations. Again, if the average days on market in your given neighborhood is 45 days, let the sellers know that. Because then if it's past 20 days, you have that conversation, you can remind them that on average it's taking 45 days. And then of course, continue to give them updates. And then how do other active listings look? Again, always looking at your competition, not just when you list the home, but as it's listed. I always looked on a weekly basis to see if anything new came up, anything else that we needed to be aware of. So you don't want to just do what we call the 3 Ps. And that's ultimately putting a sign in the yard, putting your home, listing it in the MLS, and then what we say, real estate agents, they just sit there and pray and hope that a buyer comes along and it sells. But think about doing the 4th P. And the 4th P is prospect, be proactive, and then of course, provide value. So again, those are some of the ways that you can set yourself apart as a real estate agent and really determine the outcome of your listing appointment and win every single listing. Again, if you like what you see, go ahead and comment and like below, as we're putting out new content every single week.